Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. Coming up here with the major Season 3 Reloaded update within Warzone and Black Ops 6, we are going to see a new weapons and a new meta update drop. This includes some actual brand new weapons and a brand new aftermarket part coming to the game alongside a standard meta update as well. Now, we should have the full patch notes for Season 3 Reloaded, presumably dropping either tomorrow, April 30th, or super early on May 1st. We're going to have to wait and see. Obviously, once the full patch notes and all the weapon balancing updates are out, the gameplay changes, the bug fixes, everything like that, you guys know I'm going to be covering that right as it happens. So if you want to make sure you're in the know for that alongside everything else going on in COD, feel free to hit that subscribe button, turn on those post notifications, and of course, if you enjoy this video, be sure to drop a like on it. It's always really appreciated. But with the new weapons update, we actually have several details on what to expect here based on some of the new reveals that we have for Season 3 Reloaded, but then also some general details that they've given us before. Plus, we can also make some pretty solid assumptions and some educated guesses on what to expect with the overall meta update as well, because there's some obvious things that are likely going to be balanced out in one way or another. But anyway, first up here, let's talk about the new weapons coming with Season 3 Reloaded. We do have one more standard update happening with Season 3 Reloaded, but then we also have a bit of a gimmicky one, quite frankly. Like, I'm very curious to see if it ends up being just exclusively a gimmick, a fun option, or if it ends up being actually competitive. We're going to see with the update when it drops. But first up here, the standard weapon update is going to be the introduction of a brand new SMG known as the Ladra. Now, the devs actually told us this is essentially a remake of the Spectre from Black Ops 1, sort of an homage to that as a throwback weapon. And this is going to be available for free in the High Art event. So we'll have this available right away at launch through just playing the game, earning XP. You'll be able to get this. I also have to imagine there's probably going to be a new bundle that just negates the entire event, because they seem to like to do that this year when a new weapon ends up dropping. But with the Ladra, this is going to have 37 levels in total, full customization with optics, muzzles, barrels, etc., its own unique camos as well. And here's how they describe it. This is a full auto SMG with an extreme rate of fire, excellent range, and low recoil. However, its base damage is going to be a little bit lower, as headshots can help offset that lower base damage. But just simply based off that description, this thing certainly seems like it's got some potential for sure, both up close because of the crazy rate of fire, and then also maybe in the mid-range too, as like sniper support, since it's got excellent range and low recoil. In addition to that, they also describe it by saying, combining a high fire rate with excellent range and low recoil, the Ladra SMG can compete with the best even out to the mid-range. More shots are needed due to the weapon's lower base damage, so consider an extended mag, scavenger, or the assault pack to keep your ammo stocked through even the thickest of fights. Hopefully we have a decent sized extended mag 2 or extended mag 3 on this thing, or it might end up being a situation like the compact where it shreds, but it also is almost balanced out in and of itself because its damage per mag is a bit of a concern. Either way, we are getting a new close range meta update with the introduction of the Ladra SMG, and probably even more within that close range meta that we'll talk about here in just a moment. We do also have one other new weapon update happening with Season 3 Reloaded, although this one is not in the form of a completely original new weapon. It's actually an aftermarket part or a weapon attachment update, and this is the Goblin MK2 762 Mini Rocket Conversion. Yes, you heard that right. We're getting a rocket launcher conversion for an assault rifle. So this is also going to be available through the High Art event completely for free just by playing the game. And like I said at the start, this either seems like it's going to be a huge gimmick and just like a for fun mess around weapon that really doesn't excel at anything competitively, or it's going to be extremely broken and they're going to have to nerf it like after a week or two because everyone's spamming it, right? There's no in between. It's either gimmick or a broken meta. But here's how they describe it. This converts the Goblin Mark II into a fully automatic weapon with explosive rocket ammunition. Splash damage capabilities come at the expense of bullet velocity and a rate of fire, equips a new default barrel and magazine, and it blocks all other barrel, muzzle, and magazine attachments. So as far as like loadouts and builds go with this, I have to imagine it's going to be a little bit wonky because you're going to be limited, especially if you're using a 5 attachment build, and you might not even get the most out of like a gunfighter build if it's blocking other attachments. But I'm certainly curious to see how this one is going to behave in game. Could be hilariously broken or hilariously bad. Either end of the spectrum there is up for grabs. Now, beyond the actual new weapon updates that we're going to see with Season 3 Reloaded, as mentioned, we're also going to see a standard meta update as well with various different buffs and nerfs. And with this, the devs so far haven't detailed anything in specific. Again, that's going to be, kept for the full patch notes when those end up dropping later this week. So stay tuned for that. We'll be covering those in full detail right as they are released. But there are a few other hints and teases that the devs have given us. Plus, there's also some very obvious things that are likely going to be adjusted here. But if we go all the way back to the original Season 3 update patch notes on April 3rd, when that first dropped, they detailed that there were going to be some upcoming weapon updates potentially throughout this season. And I assume they'll also probably bleed into like Season 4 Reloaded as well. But back at the very start of Season 3, we obviously saw a major damage overhaul to the Black Ops 6 weapons. They buffed the damage on a ton of Black Ops 6 rifles and SMGs and a few other weapons in between. And this made it so that the Verdansk TTK, particularly when using Black Ops 6 rifles and subs, is very fast, much closer to original Warzone than what we had beforehand. And they also mentioned that these enhancements and these damage buffs were originally just going to be the Black Ops 6 weapons, but then subsequently would also extend to legacy weapons as well. So essentially, that is patch note speak for these damage buffs are coming to Black Ops 6 guns first because that's the new game's guns and we got to focus on those. But then over time, we're going to see buffs to the MW2 and MW3 options as well to buff their damage and actually make them usable. And we talked about this in our original meta breakdown for Season 3. It makes the Black Ops 6 guns feel phenomenal right now, but it creates a huge separation in the meta where most MW2 and MW3 guns, particularly like rifles, SMGs, LMGs, just aren't usable because the TTK is so much slower with those. But again, they do have that confirmation that those buffs are going to be coming, and it's very possible we see a lot of that happen with Season 3 Reloaded. I'm hoping so, because when that does happen, it's going to be huge for the meta and help diversify things a lot. Another thing we can look out for with the meta update here is fixing some broken weapons. There's currently a lot of weapons and even attachments that are disabled and missing in game because of previous issues with them. For instance, the MTZ-762 Heretic Carbine Kit hasn't been in the game in a long time. The Reclaimer 18 shotgun hasn't been in the game for a long time. The Core 45 handgun hasn't been in the game for a long time, nor has the Spear melee. They've also disabled the 6X thermal because there was a glint issue with that. The Dragon's Breath ammo on all the 12 gauge Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3 shotguns, all that stuff is disabled. Obviously, it's all impacting the meta to a certain extent, so it's quite possible as well with Season 3 Reloaded, we end up seeing some fixes for that, and some of those things, ideally all of them, are reintroduced back into the game and back into the weapon and attachment arsenal. And then lastly, I briefly want to dissect a little bit of what to expect with the actual meta update patch notes, the buffs and the nerfs to various weapons, obviously outside of potential MW2 and MW3 weapon buffs. There is obviously some things going on in the meta right now that are pretty dominant. The first of which being snipers with the long range meta. The HDR is king. If you're not using the HDR, you're willingly putting yourself at a disadvantage right now in the long range meta. I have to imagine that's either going to result in one of two things. Either straight up the HDR is nerfed in some capacity, they add more idle sway to it, or they reduce the velocity, or they do something else to balance it out some as it's the best one-shot sniper. Or they go through, they buff the other snipers to make them have an infinite one-shot range or better velocity or whatever else. Or they go through and they buff the rifles even more and buff the LMGs and the other long-range options, fully auto long-range options even more, so that that's even more competitive against the sniping meta. So I would probably expect something to shift there. And then especially on the close-range side of things, I mentioned it earlier, we're getting a new SMG, so that's going to shake things up to begin with. But currently, the AMAX and the AK-74 are better close-range options than the actual SMGs and shotguns. Typically, when it comes to Warzone's balance in the past, the devs have not really stuck to a situation where a rifle, particularly one that usually excels in the mid to long range, is a better SMG than the actual SMGs. So I'd almost guarantee that we're going to see an update to the AK-74 at the minimum, and maybe the AMAX as well, to nerf some of their close range capacities, maybe the damage range there, or the up close damage, so that those are not overtaking and overwhelming every single close range fight versus shotguns, versus SMGs, even versus some pistols, right? Like that definitely is an imbalance there that just doesn't really seem like it should be the case. So I'd probably be looking out for some changes there as well. Once again though, here shortly we're going to have the full patch notes with all the weapon details, all the new changes there, other bug fixes, gameplay updates coming to multiplayer, zombies, and Warzone alike. I'll be covering that and everything else going on in COD right as it happens. So if you want to guarantee you're always in the know, feel free to hit that subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this video, a like rating on your way out would be seriously appreciated. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.